Welcome to episode 53 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies, plus tips, apps, and gear. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my guest this week, my returning guest, is Frederick Van Johnson from the TWIP Podcast. How are you doing, Frederick?
I'm doing great, David. How's it going?
Good. Glad to have you back here. It's more stuff to talk about here. There's always something to talk about when it comes to iOS and iPhone and photography and
absolutely
news, and it it continues to evolve. I don't think it ever changes, does it?
No, it'll never stop. It'll never stop. So.
This week actually is a very slow week news-wise. I was very surprised actually, but I guess that's how it is sometimes. But
yeah.
I got a couple news stories here we're going to talk about, and then I figure spring break's coming up, and I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to talk to you about how you take pictures with your iPhone and or your iPad, and be interested to hear what you say about the iPad part of taking pictures.
Yeah.
We'll just dig right into this here. So, the first story that caught my eye was, and I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it at all, is it's Samsung and that foldable phone. Did you take a look at that at all? As far as
I did. I checked that out, and I watched the release video, and the whole 9 yards. So it's
what was your thoughts?
Yeah, looks pretty interesting. As with any new hardware technology thing, you can't really get a good feel for it literally until you get a feel for it, right? And you'll hold it in your hands, and then that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is actually using the thing for a couple months or weeks or whatever to see where the holes are, because there's always going to be holes like, it's great, but battery life, or it's great, but the hinge fails, or it could be just great. Period.
It's great, but it's $2,200.
Yeah. There's that. Well, there's been that steady creep of price increases for smartphones across the board, right? So
absolutely. Even Samsung with the S10 Plus. I'm interested. I know that some people have already been doing some comparisons with the cameras between the 10 and 10s Max and the S10 Plus, and it's definitely going to be interesting. That's to say the least here. So, but this article actually pointed out the potentially that Samsung is offering to supply these foldable displays to both Apple and Google. So. Will that entice either one of them, do you think?
I don't think so. Samsung, but who knows what I know? I'm not behind closed doors at either one of those companies, obviously. So who knows what the data looks like? So or the economics or the spreadsheet, But looking at it from a customer standpoint and also an ex-Apple employee standpoint, Apple and Samsung have been locked horns for a while now in litigation. So there's that, so there's that half of it. The other side of it is Apple likes to invent their own stuff, and do it, presumably do it better than everyone else and give you things that you didn't know you needed. Like Steve Jobs used to say, he likes to invent things, or Apple likes to invent things that we didn't know we needed, right? So with those two things in mind, I find it highly unlikely that a company like Apple would go buy competitors or license a competitor's technology when they have more money than most governments on Earth, right? They could, they could easily just do it themselves if they wanted to. So.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. To me, I think this is a first generation product release. It's just like anything else. When you buy a product for the first time, it's something new. It's shiny. I'm an early adopter, but not that much of an early adopter, especially my bank account won't allow me to be doing that either. So I'd rather watch everybody from the sidelines to see how this plays out. But it's going to be interesting.
I have an addiction that takes most of my money. It's called food.
Food?
Yeah, it turns out.
We're going to talk about food and photography. Everyone's got to bring that up too.
Man. I have to hit the food thing at least 2 or 3 times a day now.
I have a couple food topics we're going to be bringing up later here, so this should be good. It should be interesting to see where this actually leads as far as that goes. other discussion I want to kind of throw out there is the fact that the Mac Observer actually had an article about talking about an unannounced product feature, which actually I was very surprised to see happen a couple of days ago. Apple at their shareholder meeting, and Craig Federighi's kind of was being they're calling him Air Force One, of course. He kind of slipped out and saying that there's going to be some other features that USB-C is going to allow on an iPad. I'm like, really? Is that really true? Well, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that, but
I did. I saw that. Yeah, I think that what the main thing that I saw of that was video out from the USB-C port, right?
That's huge.
Yeah, which is pretty huge. Which will allow folks to presumably use their iPad Pro instead of a MacBook Pro for presentations and things like that. Lightening our load and changing the loadout structure for trips, right? So, if you only had if you could get everything done on an iPad, then it makes more sense just to bring the iPad instead of the MacBook and all the power bricks and all that stuff. I think it was strategic. Apple has been known to not ever do anything without a reason. Right. And they don't make those kind of mistakes where they're like, "Oh, oops, we told you about some new feature." They don't do that. Everything they do is programmed and on a grid. So you can I would imagine there's a war room in the new Apple campus, where they know, hey, in October of 2023, we're going to start teasing this thing, that people are going to want and all that. So I wouldn't put any stock into Air Force One making an unscheduled landing. Right?
That's right. What's really enticed me so far is, you can now it's a USB-C device. You can use a USB-C dock to plug some things in now, especially your SD cards, and you don't need to have all of Apple's accessories. I don't know if you have it, the OWC travel dock that's USB-C, and it's got all the ports on it, and they work. And most of them do work. I have one that actually has an Ethernet jack on it.
I have that one too. Yeah, I use the Satechi. There's several different adapters. In fact, I'm using one right this second now. Can I show it to you? Yeah, I guess I can show it to you. I'm not really.
You and I can see it.
You can't see it. It's an audio podcast, but you can see it. It's this guy. It's called a Satechi.
Yeah, Satechi makes good stuff. I bought the port that goes on my MacBook Pro that goes on the side.
And the one I have has HDMI out on it, 3 USB 3 ports on it, Ethernet, a USB-C port on it, as well as a micro SD and a standard SD slot on it. So pretty much everything that's missing from my MacBook Pro is in this little device. So I'm happy with it.
We'll if you have a link for that, we should put that in the show notes so people could see that.
You got it. Send it to me.
And the what do you think about the approximate cost of that one is? Is that about
I'll have to look it up. Okay. Actually, I can look it up right now.
That's okay. We'll throw in the show notes.
I can multitask.
I threw you a curve here for talking about different topics there. It's that's what's great about USB-C. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but do you think iPhone is going to go with a USB-C port in the next generation, or do you think they're going to wait?
I sincerely hope so, because right now my iPhone, and I have iPhone 10. So my iPhone, which is a late model, very expensive iPhone, right? As you know, is one of the few devices in the constellation of devices that I use that is still not USB-C.
Right.
Right. So which again, like back to that travel loadout, it changes my travel loadout because my phone and my watch, have to have a specific bottle where everything else can have a different bottle. Right? Yeah. Those are very picky babies. So I would love for it to have it, but I don't have any inside information.
No, of course not.
My guess is unfortunately, I don't think the next iPhone is going to have USB-C. I think the one after it will likely have USB-C. I think this next one is too soon. I think it's still too soon, and they're probably still gathering data and probably doing all sorts of magical spell incantations inside Apple and learning from the iPads with USB-C before they push it out on the phone. So that's my I'm trying to brace my enthusiasm.
That's right.
For USB-C. I would love to be pleasantly surprised and have them shock me and put USB-C on the next phone, but I'm gonna go with no. I don't see it coming on the next phone because it's just too soon. And Apple's very pragmatic about their changes, especially to an entire ecosystem like the iPhone. Like it's one thing to do it on the iPad, which arguably has a smaller footprint than iPhone. It's still an important product to Apple, but it's a less important product. iPhone is world changing, and to retool and change the port, you're changing a lot of stuff. I mean, you're changing car mounts, you're changing an entire ecosystem of third-party accessories. It goes on and on and on and on. Cables, adapters, everything just gets obviated and obsoleted at the moment that they change the port on the iPhone. So they've got to give that some careful consideration before they pull the trigger.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, and you never know. Apple surprised us in the past here, so
yeah, exactly. You don't know. We don't know what we don't know.
This is true. So let's jump right in. Spring break's coming. I'm actually going to be going on a little bit of vacation here in a couple weeks. I'm going to Las Vegas with my wonderful wife. So we're going to have a little fun, and I want to take advantage of taking a little more pictures of different places, and having that skill set to utilizing your iPhone is key. You want it to be your one of your tools for your cameras when you travel. I mean, you travel with your DSLR all the time, or has there ever been a trip that you've traveled with just your iPhone or iPad as your
Yeah, in fact, I just got off one that I traveled with just my iPhone. Well, that's not technically true. I mean, it was the WPPI Wedding and Portrait Photographers Conference in Las Vegas. So I just got back from there a couple days ago, and I did not bring. And here's the irony of the situation. I was the MC in the Panasonic booth because I'm a Panasonic, ambassador for Lumix. Excuse me. But yet I did not bring any bodies with me or any lenses because looking at the schedule, I knew how busy I was going to be, and there was going to be absolutely no opportunity to take any real photos, and I know how those kind of conferences go. So what I did instead was I brought my phone, the iPhone 10, and I brought the DJI Osmo Pocket with me.
You want the Pocket? Okay. So I've got the mobile too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. So
I probably should bring that with me.
I have a very small little bag that I carry around with me that has everything I need in it to do a 3-person mic'd video 4K interview. Okay. 2 camera if necessary, using the iPhone and the Osmo Pocket. I can do, wide shot and punch in and all that stuff. So I can do all that from one little bag. And I wanted to just see if I could do all that, have that level of capability while traveling with just a carry-on, laptop bag, and a small roller bag. And I was able to do it. I had no problems. But normally, depending on the trip, I will. Sure. I'm not the photographer that feels an obligation to bring a camera with me every single place I go. At dinner, it's on my shoulder and all that stuff.
Right.
I used to, but those days are gone now because I think of smartphone technology. Now I feel like I can very easily get by and get through most situations with just my phone. And if it's a situation where I need superior optics and the power of a mirrorless or micro four thirds or whatever camera, then I have those at the ready. I can grab them and take them with me, but they don't need to be with me all the time.
Yeah, I have my DSLR sitting in my closet, the Nikon D7000. I haven't probably touched it in quite a while because I've got the 10s Max. That's a pretty awesome camera on that iPhone. So something to think about. I've got a big trip coming up into Europe. I'm going to Italy in the summer, so that's going to probably be a DSLR trip. I think I should not bring that with me. This will be my second time going there, so I've got a lot of photos from. I went there 9 years ago, but I'm going to get some different perspectives now and different types of photos. So, even on that trip, absolutely, I would bring my larger camera too. Right.
But I wouldn't bring it with me everywhere. Like if you're going out to dinner at night.
not going to
bring your phone, you know.
If I'm being a tourist, I'm going to the wine country or places where, you know, you want to get some good long zoom shots. It comes in handy. But I mean, this I'll tell you, this camera on the XS Max is pretty amazing as it's in itself. So
yeah.
So I threw in some of the some of the quick tips, and I'm sure obviously you know a lot of those. I think a lot of people with the focus and exposure can always be a challenge with folks when they're using their iPhone, and how to do that. And, you know, tapping your viewfinder where you go to the camera. Did you have a good skill or anything? And I know whenever your teachings, do you talk about that specifically as far as focus and exposure with that?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. Yeah, it's like we were saying, the technology and the AI in these devices is superior. It's very, very superior when it, you know, in comparison to older cameras, not in comparison to seasoned photographers. But,
right.
But, you know, in comparison to older point and shoots and even older phones, these cameras kind of know what the subject is, and they do a really good job. Versus in the old days, it was to get, you know, a proper exposure was basically your camera looking at a scene and trying to get it to what it thought was balanced to 18% gray. Mm-hmm. Like if it could get it, you know, most of the values in the scene to around 18% gray, that equaled a good exposure.
Sure.
These days, it still does that to some degree, but it also applies a bit of logic to that because it knows, hey, that thing in the foreground looks like a subject and it's kind of close to me and it's got two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I'm going to make the assumption that is what this person wants to take a photo of. I'm going to base my exposure on that thing, right? Or there's no carbon-based life forms in this shot, but there's a lot of blue at the top and a lot of brown at the bottom, and you know, so this is probably a beach scene, so I'm going to oversaturate a little bit. So it can make those kinds of decisions, but occasionally it does the wrong thing. So with focus and exposure, like you said, you can tap on the screen and it will focus and expose for that location, but many people don't know that you can tap and hold on the screen. Right. Mm-hmm. And it brings up an up and down slider where you can increase or decrease the exposure from what the computer in the camera, the AI, thinks that the exposure should be. So I do that from time to time, but very rarely. If it's a challenging lighting situation, like I'm in a dark room and there's a candle lighting someone and the AI gets confused, then I'll give it an assist, you know, and say, no, this is what I really wanted.
Yeah, and that's what's so awesome about the iPhone. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason of having to do. You just point and shoot, and that's what most people do. I mean, compared to the days when we had the point and shoot cameras, which has pretty much become a dead device. I mean, there's so few of them out in the market now. Why have it when you have a smartphone like this? And that's what's so awesome. Like you said, it's a computer in your hand. It's going to do all the exposure stuff for you, right?
Yeah, it's your Pixel droid, and it's very smart, and it you know, like in Star Wars, let the targeting computer do the work for you, you know, and unless you really want to use the Force. So. Yeah,
exactly. The other thing is avoiding shake. That other feature that's on the iPhone is you know, tapping that on-screen shutter button can also cause camera shake. Now, to avoid this, do you take your pictures? I mean, I'm so used to using the button on the screen, but little people don't realize you also can use the volume control on the phone to take the picture to avoid that shake, right?
Yeah, it takes some skill. In terms of being able to hold your camera right. It also depends on how large your hands are, you know.
I got the hands.
Especially if you're trying to get yourself in the shot, you know, and use the physical button on the camera. But yeah, that is a thing. I actually prefer. I don't know if it's what the percentage is, but I flip 50 between using the on-screen shutter button and the physical shutter button, because sometimes I want to pretend like it's a camera. Right. You know, and I'm using the phone in landscape or horizontal mode, and you know, I've got my finger on the shutter button, and I'm tapping to focus. I'm getting my composition, and I click, and I got the shot. So it really feels like a point and shoot camera.
Right.
At other times, I want to see the shot, and for some reason, it's more intuitive to actually just tap the screen and get the shot that way. But the good news is we have the ability to do both, right? Which which is a question for mirrorless camera manufacturers, is why can't I do that on my mirrorless camera as well?
Yeah,
some of them
exactly.
do allow you to do that, like on the Panasonics, and I think some of the Sonys and Fuji cameras, you can set them so that you can tap and focus and take the shot at the same time from the LCD on the back of the camera, but many of them don't let you do that yet.
Yeah. So that's one of those things. Just be aware of it, because there's sometimes I have seen some photos people have taken with their iPhones. Like, gosh, that could have been a lot less blurry if you would have held maybe taken the picture with the volume control as your shutter button instead, or even better yet, if you put it on a tripod and you're using some people have Bluetooth or remote that you could do. I used it with Osmo Mobile 2. You can do the shutter right from there. So but most of us have the phone in our hands. Be aware as far as that goes. The settings in themselves, there is a place to preserve those settings. Do you make changes to any settings, or do you like to say you keep them to the core settings?
I keep them at default. It's funny that it's I think the smartphone and my let's call it my proper camera occupied two different spaces in my head when it comes to photography. With a smartphone, I know it's smarter than my quote real camera, so I tend to let it make more decisions for me, and I tend to rely more on the defaults that are in the camera. My Micro Four Thirds camera is very smart, so I tend to, depending on what I'm shooting, like it's heresy in the photography world to use any sort of intelligent automatic mode or program mode or anything like that. Right. But I don't believe that. I think that's gobbledygook. I believe that you have a device that you can use for different situations, and if I'm in a fast-moving situation, I don't want to take the time to figure out or take the chance of getting the exposure wrong or whatever. I want to put my trust in the computer. I'll put it on intelligent auto or program if I want to, but other times I want to drive in using the manual transmission. So I'll put it in manual, and I'll have full control over everything in the scene. I think it's important for photographers to understand the breadth of the capabilities that their device has, so that you can make proper decisions on when to go full auto and when to just take over completely and go manual because you want to break rules or whatever. Right.
We'll get to that in a second with long exposures. But the preserve settings, if you want to go into doing that, you can. If you go into the settings under camera, you can go into the preserve settings settings, and if you'd rather set it to specifics, like I think most people like to use the photo mode, but you could. If you take a lot of portraits, maybe you want it in portrait mode as a default, or maybe a square mode for those of you really taking a lot of pictures of panoramas. I don't know if you'd be a default to panorama, but have you? I've had real good success with panoramas. Do you like the feature of the panorama?
I do. I
do too.
I do. I love it. I think it's great. I've seen it improve over the years, right? I remember when it was first introduced and we were like, wow, that's great, except for that thing right there. But it's getting better and better every release they do. And let me just throw one thing in there on preserve settings real quick. Please. For me, at least my mindset is I never know what situation I'm going to be in when I need to take a photo. I don't know if I'm taking a photo of my parking spot at the mall or remember it, or if I'm trying to do some sort of artistic shot or a macro close-up shot or a portrait or whatever. So I choose to leave the camera at default. So I'm not saying, okay, automatically go back to the portrait mode because I do a lot of portraits. I'm saying just stay default, and I go back and I make the decision when I'm going to take the photo. Yep. Like I'll be like, you're going to be over in Europe, you'll probably take a lot of panoramas, but I would, if it were me, I wouldn't necessarily lock my camera into defaulting to panorama mode. Because it's a swipe and a click away, it's like, boom, exactly. There I am. And now I'm doing a panorama. Next time I activate the camera, it's reset and ready for me to make the choice back to zero. I think that works better for my type of brain. Yeah. I mean, I think just like you said at the beginning, just leave the preserve settings alone. I mean, their defaults are fine, and you can go back and change them when you need to. I mean, really, that's really all it is. So, long exposures. Have you? I know you've dabbled into a lot of long exposure photography with the iPhone. What is your thoughts on that as far as how well it works with the iPhone versus
DSLR and such.
It works well. I mean, it works really well. In fact, my friend Photo Joseph, who has a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Photo Joseph, he does a lot of iPhone photography as well. And he, I remember one day when he was, you know how we are as nerds and geeks, we like find something and then got to tell everybody about it. he found out how good the long exposures were in iPhone.
That's
and we're both photographers. He's a Lumix ambassador as well. Oh, yeah. And he was just raving about how good they were. And it's interesting when you look at those, you got to look at it from the standpoint of, and maybe I'm aging myself, but you got to look at it from the standpoint of what we had to go through in the film days.
Bulb.
to do a long exposure, right? I mean, it's just, it's depressing because we spend so much of our lives trying to get it right and never being successful.
Right.
And now
so many
today,
times.
now today you can whip out this little piece of glass and aluminum out of your back pocket and do something that rivals anything you could have done back then. So I dig it. It's really cool. But on top of that, I think you're probably going to touch on this. One of the important things is, and one of the things I carry with me all the time, even in my little bag, is something to stabilize my camera. Yeah. Whether it's typically a little tripod. In fact, I have this little Frankenpod that I call it, that is kind of a mixture of a selfie stick, a little mini micro tripod, and an iPhone holder, and a GoPro mount with a specific carrier for the DJI Osmo Pocket on there. And with that thing, I can get all kinds of shots with it, whether I need to extend it or just put it, stabilize the camera to get in the shot, or do long exposures or any of that stuff, So that's if I was to give any tip for an iPhone photographer looking to increase his or her game, it would be get some sort of stabilization for that camera. It will change the level of your shots immediately.
Absolutely. And then, when you go into the live photo of the photo itself, you could do some After Effects too with long exposure. So I mean, that's the beautiful thing about not only the camera part of it, the editing part. I mean, I think about it. You make me reminiscent here. We talked about the old ways, and I remember bulb and taking. I mean, my old Nichromat EL SLR camera. I was taking film shots of an eclipse sitting outside my front of my house, and I'm just sitting out there. I'm doing long exposures on a tripod, and to think about then with film compared to now, what we can do with these devices, it's just absolutely amazing. Really
and at the same time, I think it's interesting because it's important to remember. You know what they say, you got to know where you came from in order to know where you're going, right? So I think it's important to remember the way photography was, but at the same time, where we have all these new tools, I think it's important not to obsess over the past, and say,
absolutely,
it used to be like this, and I used to have to do all this stuff, just
I'm going to do film now.
Right. Embrace it's kind of like someone driving a Tesla around and lamenting or, talking about, wow, when I had my horse and buggy, it used to take me 4 days to go get a gallon of milk. Now I can do it without even looking at the road, Just go get the milk.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you can make stops along the way and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Just embrace that part of it versus, always talking about how cool things are. So I think it's important to remember that stuff, but look forward and look at all the cool stuff we can do now. It's just amazing.
That's why I stay on top of the technology. Got to keep the new phone because I love taking pictures and taking with the iPhone, and it's always something. The devices you're always going to have with you. And it's at my hip, and I see you put up Focus. So that's going to be a good. I did talk about that app. That should be your app you talk about too. As I talked about it a while ago, but we got to talk about it again here. All right. Then the level indicator. When you go into the settings into the camera, it does help you compose shots, and then using that rule of thirds. That being you want to explain that real quick about what the rule of thirds are as far as that grid goes? Sure.
Yeah. So the rule of thirds, which we like to just say is a suggestion of thirds. Right. So the rule of thirds is when you take you dissect your basically your viewfinder with 2 lines horizontally and 2 lines vertically. Right. And where those lines intersect are what they say is where the points of interest, where you want to place your subject so that it generates the most interest, versus say putting the subject dead center in the middle of the frame, which is kind of what our default is, because humans tend to like symmetry. So we want to put everything in the middle of the frame and take the photo. The rule of thirds gives you 4 areas in the screen where those lines intersect, where you should put your theoretically put your subject in order to make it a more interesting photograph.
And it really is grids. I mean, just you look at the picture and then there you are. That's all you're doing is you're turning it on and showing grids, and just that's the rule of each third of that box. And it makes it a lot easier really to compose if you have trouble with your eyes looking at what you're taking a picture of. A lot of times, most people shouldn't need those grids, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah, I keep mine on all the time. I love the grids. Just I don't know why. I just like to have mine there. They just
you're used to it too.
I mean, they help me feel more in control of what's happening in the scene. One tip can I throw out a quick tip?
Absolutely.
One quick tip I throw out to people in some of the talks that I do, beginning photography talks, is some instant ways, even with iPhone photography, to make your photography instantly better, is to think of the shots that you're doing from the perspective of the subject. And what I mean by that is, if you're taking photos of kids, most people in the world kind of fall between the 5 foot and 6'5" range, or so, which means we all perceive the world at from a similar perspective. The minute you step outside of that perspective, instantly your photos are more interesting. So if you get down low, outside of that, most people, especially if you're really tall, you don't want gravity is not your friend. So if you get down low, you get down low, you get that shot. Now your shot is more interesting. If you get up high and get a shot, and now it's more interesting. And then the perspective part of that is, if you're taking a shot of a subject like a pet or a small child or something like that, take the photo from their perspective, get down with them, so that you're on a peer-to-peer sort of level with them. Yep. And get that shot, and that tends to make the shots, just that much more interesting.
Absolutely, no, that's an absolutely great tip. It's just simple stuff, just like that.
It's just simple, It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's little small things that you can do instantly, like right now. I mean, if you have an iPhone with you right now, you should just test it and take a photo of someone at eye level. Which is kind of a duplication of how you would perceive that shot or the world from that perspective, and then go high. Put the camera up above your head and use that volume button trick and snap the photo. You can't see the viewfinder because it's above your head, but you can use that volume button, can't you? You can take the photo from a high perspective. Yep, and now people are going to be like, "Well, how'd you do that? That's amazing." And you're like, "Well, I listen to
I listen to Frederick on TWIP. That's how I learned it, or even on In Touch with iOS here too. The other feature I kind of pulled out here, and I just added this because Apple just put together a neat commercial video, which I don't know if you saw it yet or not, is the one where the couple that's in bed and he's looking at a picture of his wife, and there's a guy in the background, and he's like, "Who is that?" "Oh, that was an old boyfriend." He's just a friend. And then all of a sudden, he's blurring out the background using what's called depth control.
I haven't seen that yet.
I have a link in the show notes. So everybody see that. It's hilarious. And I just wanted to, if you could tell the listeners a little bit about what the depth control is and how great of a feature it is. In the iPhone.
Depth control on the iPhone is part of a sort of a new. I don't know if it's new, but it's a new technology to smartphones called computational photography, and that's when you're allowing the computers and the artificial intelligence within the camera to capture all sorts of data, then act on that data for your image to the benefit of the data. So in the case of depth control, it means with traditional cameras like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, the holy grail, especially in the portraiture realm, is to have a blurry background so that your subject pops out of that background. But in order to get that, you have to purchase lenses that have a wide aperture or a low f number, right? And the what goes along with that is a high price tag, right?
Very much so.
The lower the
those wide angle lenses,
the higher the price tag, right? So, which puts it out of reach for a lot of people, and point and shoot cameras and video cameras tend to have wide and small f numbers, which means everything's in focus, which leads to amateurish, generally speaking, looking shots. Sure. But if you have a high f number, which means a wider aperture, you can even test this right now. If people are listening to this, your eyes are essentially cameras, right? So you can put your hand in front of your face right now, open, or squint down, which means you're closing your aperture. If you squint down, you could probably make out your hand and the stuff behind your hand. Yep. But if you open your eyes really, really wide and look at your hand, now the background goes out of focus and your hand becomes a portrait, right? So that's what depth of field is. And the depth control on the iPhone is amazing, because what it does is it analyzes the scene, because there's multiple cameras in there, 2 cameras, and analyzes the scene. One of them is getting depth information and the other one is getting image data. And it'll, through some sophisticated AI and software in there, it gives you the control to drag a slider or a dial inside when you're editing the photo to, after the fact, blur out that background. Which is, was sorcery to us older film-based photographers.
Yeah. We were getting the f-stops all the way down to get the best depth of field.
Exactly. Once you take the photo back in the old days, either you got it or you don't. Now that equation is broken. You take the photo, and because you have all that data available to you and the computer knows what to do with it, you can blur the background out selectively, or you can control how much of it is in focus and how much isn't. And that's what that depth control does. It's really amazing.
I used to watch the video.
Used it on the iPhone. It was great, but it had some issues, like it would cut off ears and things like that. But on the iPhone 10, it's been amazing. Not only for but even stuff. Like we're sitting at a bar in Vegas, and you take a photo of your drink sitting on the bar with the lit up bar in the background. Now you can blur that lit up bar and put the focus, the attention directly on the glass. So it's really cool.
Yeah, check out that video. It just cracked me up, because the old boyfriend is blurred out now. It was very easy to do, and that's how they showed it. So,
it reminds me of.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That reminds me of an episode of Have you ever seen the series Black Mirror?
I have not. Tell us though. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, I've just taken I've taken a week out of your life.
Okay. Black Mirror.
Black Mirror is sort of a science fiction anthology that is done sort of in the vein of I want to say like Twilight Zone, but for 2019. Okay. So they have these episodic sort of releases, but they play with really interesting topics, and I won't give it away, but each one of them is different. I think there's half a dozen episodes out now, but one of the episodes deals with censorship and technology, and sort of the way, like with social media, you can forget people and block them. They, in their future, their version of the future, we all have these sort of augmented reality lenses in our eyes that are not removable. Right, so you can see data on things and that sort of thing, but you can also edit people out of your life. My
app pick is gonna talk about editing people out of things here soon here. So if someone, like in the episode I'm talking about, someone took a restraining order out on someone, if you do that, they automatically become blurred to you, and it blurs them and garbles their audio. So whenever you look at them, all you see is pixels, and garbled audio is what you hear. Oh my God, that's funny.
That's amazing. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, just Google Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. I'm gonna put it actually in the show notes here. Yeah. Check that out. And of course, whenever you're on spring break, you're always going to be shopping, and you're also going to be looking at things. And then everybody uses QR codes. And one of the neatest features that they added in iOS 11, I think it started, it was iOS 11, I believe. It was iOS 12. I believe iOS 11. that you can take a picture or point at a QR code with the camera, and it automatically knows that it's a QR code, and it brings you to whatever that QR code is telling you to bring you to. And you're seeing QR codes everywhere. I mean, you go to a sign and you want to find out about something. Oh, let me put it up. Oh, cool. There's the information. I mean, that's what's great about these things, and with having that and the scanning. Scanning is a really amazing thing that the iPhone can do as well. I'm going to touch on that a little bit with photos here in a little bit here. So, I'm assuming you've used both those features many times.
I have. The scanning I've used a lot. It literally takes the place of the space sucking scanners and
I have the scanner, slide scanner. Remember the slide scanners I had? I had the old Polaroid one where you stuck the slides. I still have slides on my closet behind me. All stuff. I should go look at all my old photos and I got to start digitizing a lot of that stuff.
Those are gone now. It'll automatically detect borders and do a perspective correction on the scanned image. So I've used that. The QR code thing, like I said, I just came back from this WPPI.
I'm sure there was tons of those.
Yeah, people were walking around with business cards that, and some people. I remember this one guy had a QR code on his shirt, and
perfect.
And he's, instead of printing up cards and killing trees,
my QR code.
He's like, here's my QR code. This is my URL. Take a picture of it or aim your camera at it, and you do it, and iPhone and frankly other phones will see it and interpret it as a QR code and take you to that URL. It's amazing. It's the future.
Yeah, it really is. So, and then the iPad. What do you think? What's your thoughts of people taking pictures with their iPads? I mean,
we used to clown on people that.
Me too. I want to. You being the professional photographer you are, I like to know what you really think about.
Yeah, there's a couple schools
like
of thought.
This all
right?
day. Have you seen me doing this right now?
Yeah, there's a couple schools of thought. The first school of thought is you just look ridiculous, right? Because you have this giant thing up. Why not just use your phone? It's the same camera that's in your phone, dude. So why not? Or even worse than the camera that's in your phone, just use your phone. The second thing is it blocks the people behind you from getting the shot.
I'm at a concert. Let's bring up my iPad.
Let me bring up this giant glowing rectangle to take your attention away from everything. But on the other side, the glasses have full side of it. It's all about photography, right? So that's the biggest, most beautiful viewfinder you will ever find.
Oh my God, that's
on Earth, right? And if you have issues with your vision, or you just want to see the whole thing so that you can get the shot correctly, who cares? Who cares what the people behind you think? This is your shot.
Throw it on a tripod.
Throw it on a tripod. So, So I would never do it. I think I've taken. The only time I've even used the camera on my iPad, I think, has been the front-facing camera for video conferencing or Skype or something like that. I don't think I've ever taken a photo with the camera on the iPad because I have a phone that can do a better job. But it's there. Well, I don't want them to take it away, Apple. So I'd rather have it there than not.
Our mutual friend Chuck Joyner from Mac Voices, he uses an iPad all the time for when he does all of his interviews. He just did it at CES, and anytime he's when he's at MacStock and other events, he has an actual grip that holds the iPad Mini he has, and he's using an iPad for his gear as video. So it is a fully capable device.
Yeah, it is. It is fully capable. I would, if I could do an episode or episodes of This Week in Photo. We're video for the most, and we do video and audio. If I could do an episode of This Week in Photo where I could at least plug a camera into the USB-C port, or multiple things in the USB-C port, like a microphone, camera, I would use the iPad all day long and leave the MacBook behind. I was talking to someone about this the other day. The iPad user interface, once you get used to it, and if you're one of those people that has an iPad but you really haven't really mastered, the the multitasking features of it, and I think it's worth your effort and worth your time to just sit down and understand how the device works, from dragging the dock up and clicking and holding on apps in the dock and bringing them out to activate multitasking, because it becomes I would argue a different device once you start using it like that. And for me, once I started using it as it is designed to be used and not trying to force it into some Mac OS paradigm and instead accepting it for what it is and using it, it honestly, Dave, it feels like when I'm using my iPad, it feels effortless and like I'm in the future.
Yeah,
it feels like this is the way things are going. And then when I go back to my Mac, I still love the Mac OS, obviously, especially above other operating systems. But, when I'm using the Mac, it feels, as modern as it is, it feels outdated, right?
Yeah.
Because in my head, much like we talked about, we started this conversation, we were talking about the ports, the Lightning port and the USB-C. It feels like that. It feels like my phone and my tablet and my Apple TV are all on iOS and they all work similarly. My watch, they all work similarly except for my Mac.
Exactly.
So I have to switch gears into thinking how this Mac. Yeah, the Mac is much more powerful in some ways, obviously, but it just feels like the Mac is behind, and it's a cousin to the regular ecosystem of devices that I use now.
Absolutely, for sure. So I don't feel like you're a dork by using an iPad. Like I won't admit I don't do it that very often. Most of the time I have it in a case anyway. I have my in fact when I brought it up on our camera, I had my keyboard case on here, so I had it's got to take it out of the case to really to get the full functionality of it. So, but don't be afraid if you want to take it. Like you said, the viewfinder is giant. It's just I like looking at a nice big picture like that. And you're gonna get the full effect of the photo. But
you paid for it. Why not? Don't let anybody tell you. How to use your tech. Use it however you want to use it.
stick with the iPhone. And you hit on taking pictures of old photos. Scanning. I mean that's such a that was. I mean, gosh, I remember getting my old scanner sitting up on my desk and let's scan all those photos in. It took hours and hours. Well, of course this is too, but you don't have to do that anymore. There's so many apps out there now that do it. I found this new app, and I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it. It's called PhotoMine.
No, I haven't. I see it in your notes here.
Photo MYNE. It's relatively new, and I thought I would talk about it a little bit because it does it's a very quick and easy way to scan photos in like a matter of minutes, tens of photos, and it puts in auto cropping. It adds it auto detects picture boundaries, and you touched upon that a little bit. For there are other apps that you use that do that already, right? The auto bordering and all that.
Yeah, the boundaries. Well, the Notes app, when you're using it as a scanner, will auto detect boundaries and perspective correct and do some color correction as well. So if you tell it that you're taking a black and white photo, it will, or you're doing a black and white scan, it will understand what you're trying to do and use the technology in the app, for leveling and all that stuff and automatically apply that to the final image so that you don't have to bring it into some other app and straighten it and crop
exactly.
It just does it automatically for you, which no other scanner that you can purchase at Best Buy will do for you.
No, it won't.
So, to my knowledge, you can't.
So, this unfortunately is not. They're calling it a photo scanner by PhotoMine. It's a photo scanner and collage maker. The only thing is, and it's getting a lot of good reviews. They say it's free. It's not really free. You only get
it's
about
free
10.
With watermarks all over your images or something.
Oh no, you can scan I think you up to 10 photos, but they give you a free trial. They want you to sign up for their service. So the service costs go anywhere from I think it was like $10 all the way up to you can buy a yearly plan like around $35. But they'll give you tens of thousands of photos to be able to work with their service. Again, there are other services out there, but I think this. For having a tool like this that could scan photos fast, easy, and very quickly. And I'm getting no perks from this app at all, other than I just recognized and saw it. I thought it was really cool. You should check it out. But is there any other other than Notes app? Is that pretty much what you do as far as any scanning of photos, or do you have some other apps that you use?
No, that's generally what I use is the Notes app. One thing I would touch on with this guy with the PhotoMine app is I'm going to try it out. And it looks great, but for me it looks like it would fill the space case of, during the holidays when you're visiting relatives and you have that urge to liberate photos, family photos, to migrate them to your home.
Pull out that album. Let's get those pictures that have been sitting in those albums for the last 25 years.
Exactly. My relatives are always like, don't take any photos. Leave the photos, stay here, because they always migrate
take them if you want them.
But that's what this app is for. So you could say, these 5 photos, let me grab those real quick, throw them on the table, snap it. Now you got them all, and you can leave them in place. For larger groups, and this is me saying this without having tried Photo Scanner by PhotoMine.
Right.
But I would say, for if you have shoeboxes and shoeboxes full of old photos and negatives and slides and all that stuff, then you're probably better off sending them off to a service that will scan them for you and put them online in a protected cloud account that you can then download. And I've done that before. That works really well.
Yeah. So I had 2 other photo apps. So we can just switch gears here. And don't worry, you don't have to have your apps. If you think of something, you can. But I threw some and I thought we could discuss. You mentioned food. I have a food app I picked here. I just signed up for this service. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called Freshly. It's a service that actually pre-makes the food for you, and they ship it to you, and all you have to do is put it in the microwave for like 3.5 minutes, and they're healthy meals and they're really good. I'm very impressed by some of the food that they offer, and it only comes out to about $8 or $9 a meal. And you get like 9 meals, and we've ordered between myself and my wife. And being on the go, it's hard to eat right, and when and cooking. I mean, I tried the other services like Blue Apron and HelloFresh and all those, which of course you have to cook. But these foods are very fresh. I'm thoroughly impressed with some of the meals I've had. If you go to the website, I put a link there in the show notes. That first meal there, that's the steak peppercorn. I already know it because I saw it because I had it. It was so good.
It was good. It was. Yeah. It's hard to do steak correctly, right?
Yeah.
So the steak was done correctly.
It was done correctly, and it tasted really good. The potatoes and the vegetables, and there's chicken dishes. And obviously you can't see the app yet, but when you go into the app is absolutely gorgeous. They did a really great job of designing it. You can tap in and look at the different meals. It gives you all the descriptions of what ingredients are featured in the meal and what the calories are, how much carbs, and how much fat and protein. And it really I'm very impressed with the way these guys did it. I believe they're really expanding rapidly. I don't know, since you're on the West Coast, I don't know yet if they're offering the service on the West Coast, because they're shipping it, I believe, from Maryland out in the East Coast. So it might be tough. Although they are putting in ice and it ships quickly, so they probably should ship it overnight to the West Coast folks too, but something to check out. They have like a premium. Again, I'm not getting any compensation for this. I'm just recommending it because I think it was a great thing. And then you talked about food. I figure, what the heck? Do you like taking pictures of food? Are you a guy like that? Or does it drive you? Or is it not something you like to do?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that I do.
Yeah, me too. I'm bad.
I don't care. If it's something that I want to remember, or if it's of a restaurant that I want to remember and go back there and pull that up, what I had there, of course, why not? Yeah, I love taking pictures of food, and I love editing the photos as well. So, I'll take pictures of food and then, bring them into Snapseed and add a little saturation and a little structure in there and make it look better than it did before I consumed it, and have shared the image with friends and family before I finish eating it. So I don't mind at all.
Food is fun. The other app I threw out there, and actually The Verge just talked about this app a couple days ago. It's called Spectra Camera. It's a new iOS camera app that allows you to use AI to create stunning long exposures. And the one thing, like we talked about earlier, is you are able to, like, if you let's say you have a picture of a road or a car, or there are cars in the road, you want to remove them. It has full out AI capabilities on here. I threw a link in the show notes for that. I don't know if you've had any experience with this. It's only $2 too, which is actually, I think it's $3, but it's $3 now. It went up since this article came out, but
no, I'm buying that tonight though, for
sure.
Yeah,
I figured, I knew I was going to entice you this one.
You're spending my money. I knew coming on this show I'd spending money.
I think they also are the same developer that developed the Halid camera, HAILDE camera. I put that in there in the show notes too.
Halide.
Halide. I know I was going to pronounce that wrong.
Yeah.
So
that's an old. That's from the silver halide. Those are the little bits of silver that used to be in black and white film. That still are in black and white film. That
film and fix. Yeah, I was not bad fixer developer.
I
remember that stuff. Trying to roll those rolls of film onto the spindle. I'd always touch the film, and I would always screw it up. And
that was.
See, you bring me back memories of my photography days. So the old film days. So, again, Frederick, I can't believe it. We had the time has just gone past us again. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell everybody about you and what the stuff you're doing at This Week in Photo. You do some great stuff. You have some amazing courses. Have you updated the courses? Are you still doing courses or?
Yeah, we are doing courses, and we're in the process of updating everything. And there's a couple of cool things coming. So just to zoom out a little bit, to use photography terms. Yeah. The overall sort of TWIP ecosystem is our school, our podcast / website, as well as our community.
Yeah.
So those are the three edges. So the three blades of our sword. The community is at twippro.com, all one word, twippro.com. And that's a private paid community. It's $4.99 per month to join that. Okay. And because it has that small fee on there, the membership is really high quality. Okay. So the analogy I like to use is it's a, if you go into the airport, like an international airport is sort of like Facebook. Right. Everyone's in there. They're all going different places. They all have different agendas and, whatever. But then within that airport, there's the airport lounge, that some people have access to. And when you go into one of those airport lounges, it's a different world. It's quiet. It's relaxed. There's snacks available. You can kick your shoes off. You can watch TV, while you wait for your flight. So it's kind of like that. So the TWIP Pro is the TWIP Pro community is sort of like the airport lounge for the photography world where people can come hang out. So there's that. The podcast, thisweekinphoto.com, is our main site. It's one of the longest running photography related podcasts.
Great stuff.
In the Milky Way right now. We haven't looked beyond, but it's one of the longest ones in the Milky Way. I feel confident making that claim. But we talk about we're a weekly show, and we talk about all things photography. As the name would suggest, what happened that week in photography. Yeah. So we talk about that stuff. One other thing about the community is we do a weekly photo critique session from submissions by the members into the community. So we have a photo critique area where you can submit images to be critiqued. Yeah. And every week, every Monday, in fact, a couple of hours ago, we did one for this week. We run through and critique all the images that have been submitted for that week and record it. It's video. So we recorded, me and a co-host, and sort of give comments and feedback on the images that were submitted. So that's the community. And plus, lots of chatter and people helping people and sharing finds and discounts and all that kind of stuff is going on in there at any given time.
Well, you're spending my money now. I have to join here. That's
you gotta
not bad.
Join. Yeah, please join.
$4.97 a month. That's not bad at all.
Yeah,
I've been looking at your iPhone photography course. I want to take a look at that. And you also did a podcasting course. I was gonna take a look at that.
Pocket Shooters. Pocket Shooters is relaunching again soon. Yeah.
Good.
You reminded me I have so much stuff going on. It's crazy.
All right. Yeah. And, so all the links to you are on the show notes. One last thing I want to mention, I talked about this with you before the show, is MacStock. MacStock 2019 is coming up. We talked about it last week when I was on with Allison Sheridan, but I want to mention it again. MacStock is a conference, an expo that's in suburban Chicago. It's up in Woodstock, Illinois, actually Crystal Lake. It's happening again this year. It's July 27th, 28th, and we have such a blast, and this year's theme is create. And you got to think about the word create and what the speakers are going to talk about. It's going to be interesting. I came up with a pretty good topic, and this will be my fifth year as well. I've been part of this conference for all 5 years now, and I can't wait. And that's what I'm trying to entice you to come out to see us and check it out.
I would love to come out there, man.
Yeah, you should come out. I mean, and again, it's like coming home for you because it's Chicago, so it's in the Chicago area. So there'll be some great talks. If you don't know, David Sparks and Stephen Hackett will be there. They're going to be recording Mac Power Users number 500, the 500th episode live, and they actually just were in Chicago this past week since we record this. for the American Bar Association. They came in for a meetup, and I missed, unfortunately. But I've put a link in the show notes. It's MacStock2019.com. If you register today, they have an earlier bird special. It's only $179. I mean, you think about that for all the conferences you go to and all the other people that go to. That is like a bargain. I mean, you're getting 2 days of sessions. That's nothing. $179 early bird pricing. Again, I said the Mac Power users will be recording live. You'll be able to watch that as it goes on. We've had the My Mac game show quiz, which we've done a number of years ago. That's with Guy Searle from the MyMac.com podcast. And we've had, and they give you T-shirts. The food is amazing. It's this they give lunches both days. I mean, the food is really great catered food. They have Barry Felk's Mid-Mest Mac Mingle is an evening event, so we have a lot of fun. Last year we did board games. Then some people were playing board games, some kind of obscure board games, and some. We got into the bar and they were doing some karaoke. So we had a lot of fun, and that's the biggest thing is, as I talk about this, is everybody has that opportunity to network. So, and Mike Potter, who's the organizer of this event for all 5 years here, has just done a great job of really coordinating this. And we're just trying to get people to come out and take a look at it and have some fun. And I'm more than likely going to be speaking. I don't know officially as of yet, but we'll have some great speakers coming on. So we'd love to have you out there. So I wasn't trying to sell it to you, but I wanted to sell it to our listeners too, because I want to keep talking about it, and we're definitely want you to.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a selling point that it's in my hometown, right? So.
Yeah, so we'd love to have you out, and for you as well. So, check it out. The link's out on MacStock2019.com. It's at McHenry County College, which is actually Crystal Lake, Illinois, but it's right near Woodstock. But Woodstock, MacStock, that's where we get the theme there. Woodstock's not too far away. So go ahead and check it out. So, with that, I guess we've had our hours has just gone past us here. So, Frederick, so let me go ahead and wrap this up and get us going here. So, that is a wrap for this week. Please send your comments and your questions, suggestions to our email address at feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter at intouchwithios. You can subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and TuneIn Radio. Or better yet, just go to our website, intouchwithios.com, where all the links to listen to us are all there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65. Frederick Van Johnson, thanks again for joining me again here. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.